1 year later, my husband uncovers my affair with my boss, a shocking act of revenge. A year had passed since Eric discovered my betrayal. That moment marked the beginning of the complete upheaval of my life. Before then, he wasn't just my husband. He was my closest friend, the person I had built a life with over the past 8 years. We had faced challenges together, but we were a team. Then I made the worst decision of my life, and it shattered everything. For several months, I had been sneaking around with my employer, Mark, meeting him in secret. That morning, I thought I was safe. Eric had left early for work, so I assumed I had the entire day to myself. Mark came over to our home, the place Eric and I had built together. We were in the middle of something when the unexpected happened. I didn't hear the door open, but suddenly, Eric was there, standing in the doorway of our bedroom. His face was pale, his hands clenched into fists. The silence was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice was eerily calm. "What is this?" he asked. I froze, scrambling to cover myself, my mind racing for an explanation. The excuses I blurted out sounded ridiculous, even to my own ears. Before I could process what was happening, Mark, who should have at least faced the consequences alongside me, gathered his things and ran, leaving me alone to endure Eric's cold, silent rage. Eric didn't yell. He didn't scream. But his restraint was more terrifying than an outburst. "You have 5 minutes to leave my house," he stated icily. I pleaded with him, begged him to let me explain, but he turned away. By the time he returned, I was gone, my life already in ruins. Within a week, he had filed for divorce. The fallout was swift and brutal. The news of my affair spread quickly, and the consequences were worse than I had anticipated. Most of our friends abandoned me, refusing to acknowledge my existence. My family, while less outspoken, made it clear they were ashamed. Mark wanted nothing to do with me either. When the scandal broke, he distanced himself completely. I had not only lost my marriage and friends, but also my job. A month later, Mark fired me, claiming it was too complicated to have me around, though I knew it was just his way of severing ties. I went from managing high-profile accounts to serving coffee and burgers at a local diner. The humiliation was unbearable, but I had no choice. I found a small apartment and tried to rebuild my life. Through mutual friends, I heard that Eric was thriving. He had received a promotion and had started dating someone new, Rachel, a beautiful, intelligent woman. It hurt, but I had no one to blame but myself. He deserved happiness. Then, 6 months after the divorce, strange things began happening. My landlord abruptly raised my rent to an amount I couldn't afford. It didn't seem like a coincidence. The diner cut my hours without explanation, and every job interview I went to ended in the same way. Courteous rejections that felt deliberate. It was as if someone was making sure I couldn't move forward. At first, I thought it was just bad luck, but then I overheard 2 former coworkers talking at the diner. They mentioned that Eric had bought Mark's business. My heart dropped. That was where he had discovered my infidelity. Now he owned it. It was no longer just a business move. It felt personal. The more I looked, the clearer it became. My lost job, my financial struggles, my dwindling opportunities, they weren't just misfortunes. They had been orchestrated. Eric was no longer the man I had once known. His calm demeanor on the day of my betrayal had been just the beginning of his retribution. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed answers. When I showed up at his new house, a stunning 2-story home that reflected his success, he didn't seem surprised to see me. "Emma," he said calmly, "what are you doing here?" Taking a deep breath, I met his gaze. "I know what you've been doing, Eric." He didn't deny it. Instead, he stepped aside, gesturing for me to come in. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment. "Yes, Emma," he admitted. "I made things difficult for you. But it wasn't out of hatred. I wanted you to know what it's like to lose everything. Like you did to me." I sat there in shock, trying to process his words. "Mark," I whispered, barely able to say his name. Eric's smile was faint, devoid of warmth. "Since his firm is mine now, he works for me," he said. Mark thought he could take what was mine and get away with it. As he continued speaking, it became clear that this was more than revenge. It was closure. "I don't hate you, Emma," he said, his voice softening. "I don't even think about you anymore. But I needed this. And now I have it." His words crushed me. The weight of my choices, the trust one had broken, the pain I had caused, it all became painfully real. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the full impact of what I had done. When I got home that evening and looked in the mirror, I saw someone I no longer recognized. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something new, a sense of resolve. Eric had moved on. It was time for me to do the same. I started therapy, determined to face my guilt and rebuild my life. I enrolled in community college, hoping to start a new career. It wouldn't be easy, but it was a step forward. A year later, I heard that Mark had quit his job and moved to a different city. Eric had married Rachel, and they seemed truly happy together. As for me, I was still getting back on my feet. I had found a new job, made new friends, and was slowly coming to terms with my mistakes. Betrayal has consequences, and sometimes those consequences last a lifetime.